Hey everybody, welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Joe. And as always, I'm ready to dive into some seriously juicy info with you all today. It's like we're mixing up a knowledge cocktail here. Strong stuff, but oh, so smooth going down.
And I'm Sunny, your friendly neighborhood fact checker. I'll make sure we get all the ingredients right. Speaking of mixing things up, you know it's always a good blend? Travel whiskey and discovering awesome new things. You have to check out our friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life.
Yeah, Mickey's the best. He's always got something cool going on.
Ah, man, my second cup of coffee. I am so ready for this.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whatever time zone you were in right now.
Hey everyone, welcome. We are so glad you're here hanging out with us today.
Grab your drinks and welcome to Sip and Talk, guys.
Cheers to that. Honestly, this second coffee is totally hitting the spot.
Yeah.
And for all the Sip and Talkers out there, today's conversation is going to be pretty wild.
Oh, absolutely. I've actually had this question kind of just burning in the back of my mind for a while now. Have you noticed how top international financial media...
Like, The Economist or Bloomberg?
Yeah, exactly those. Lately, when they talk about the future of a certain massive Eastern superpower, the tone is just, it's totally different.
It really is. It doesn't sound like normal finance news at all.
Right. It's starting to read less like standard geopolitical analysis and more like a historical thriller. I mean, serious scholars are literally pulling out these feudal labels, calling the current leader the last emperor.
Which, I mean, if you think about it, it's just such a dark historical irony.
Oh, totally.
Because we're in 2026, you have this hyper-modern state, right? Armed with AI, facial recognition, this massive digital Leviathan system tracking everything. Oh. And yet, structurally, it is reverting to a 200-year-old dynastic model.
Which is just crazy to think about.
It is. So our mission today, we are going to strip away all the emotion, all the ideology. We're putting on our political science surgical gloves.
Love that.
And we're going to conduct a hardcore sandbox simulation of political legitimacy. Like, we're looking at a huge stack of data and asking the ultimate question.
Right. What happens if this mega system just suddenly vanishes?
Exactly. What happens to 1.4 billion people? So grab your coffee or your whiskey, because the Sip and Talk is going to completely refresh your understanding of the geopolitical status quo.
So before we can even simulate a collapse, I think we really need to dissect exactly why critics are using a feudal term like emperor for a 21st century leader.
Right, because usually that just sounds like, dramatic literary flair.
Exactly. But looking at the political shifts, it's highly structural. For decades, they operated under this model of collective leadership.
Right.
Historically, party insiders actually called it 9 dragons ruling the water.
Which is just an awesome phrase, by the way.
It really is. But it basically meant power was distributed, right? No one person could hijack the whole country.
Yeah.
But that architecture was completely dismantled. They eliminated presidential term limits back in 2018.
Wow, yeah, 2018.
And that officially cemented the shift to absolute one-man rule. Everything was sucked into one central office.
And a big part of how they achieved that consolidation was through that massive anti-corruption campaign.
Right, absolutely. Which, initially it was super popular with the public.
Sure, people love seeing corrupt officials face consequences. It boosts approval ratings.
Exactly. But as it dragged on for a decade, it effectively morphed into this highly efficient tool for eliminating political rivals. It became an echo chamber of purges.
Right, from older figures like Zhu Yongkang all the way to the recent sweeping purges of top generals in the rocket force.
Yep. And when you purge anyone who offers a dissenting opinion, competence just takes a backseat to absolute loyalty.
Well, hold on. I need to stop you there, because the reports point to something even more extreme than just political purges.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about pushing this specific political ideology, like the leader's personal political thought, into elementary schools. And even kindergartens.
Yeah, that is definitely happening.
Seriously, how does a modern tech-driven society accept that? It feels less like standard civic pride and more like actively teaching 5-year-olds unquestioning emperor and subject loyalty.
Critics argue that's exactly what it is. It's designed to build a Confucian-style deference to a single infallible figure right from childhood.
That actually brings up a historical analogy I was looking at, and it is absolutely fascinating.
Well, you tell.
It compares this extreme centralization to the Chongzhen emperor of the Ming dynasty. And the irony here is just wild.
I'm intrigued. How so?
Because Chongzhen, He wasn't some lazy guy lounging around the palace.
Right, he was actually known for being pretty hardworking, wasn't he?
Exactly. He was notoriously diligent. He desperately wanted to save his empire. But, and here's the catch, his severe paranoia, his constant executions of his own military generals whenever he suspected disloyalty, and his obsessive micromanagement.
Wow.
It all actually accelerated the destruction of his own empire.
That's a deep cut.
Right. So it makes you wonder, is this extreme centralization we're seeing today actually creating a modern Chongzhen scenario?
Yeah.
Like where the system breaks simply because it has become too rigid?
That is a brilliant point. The rigidity is the fatal flaw, which leads us right into why critics think this might be the last of its kind.
Because if this highly centralized power is protected by an unblinking AI-driven surveillance state...
The digital Leviathan.
Right. Why do critics believe it's going to fail?
Well, the first and most dangerous structural flaw is the succession vacuum.
Ah, the most dangerous moment for any empire.
Exactly. Without a clear, agreed-upon heir, you break the unwritten rules of succession. So if there's a sudden, black swan health event,
oh, man,
it could trigger an immediate catastrophic factional war inside the party.
Yeah.
Because there's just no institutional mechanism left to transfer power peacefully.
Wow. And then you have to add in the whole economic side of things, the collapse of economic legitimacy.
The unspoken contract.
Right. Basically, it was like a massive non-disclosure agreement. You give up your political freedom, your civil liberties.
And we guarantee you wealth and upward mobility.
Exactly. But that check is starting to bounce. You've got the bursting of this epic real estate bubble, massive youth unemployment.
Yeah, the real estate crash is huge.
And this is all happening against the backdrop of Western supply chain de-risking, like the GPS Act over here.
Yes. Intentionally pulling crucial technology supply chains away.
Which brings up a deeply practical contradiction. Running an AI-driven grid management surveillance state, that is astronomically expensive. I mean, we're talking millions of high-definition cameras, legions of human sensors.
It's not cheap.
Not at all. And local governments used to fund all this through land sales. But with the real estate market crashing, they're losing their revenue. They are literally failing to pay civil servants and even the auxiliary police.
The very people enforcing the surveillance?
Exactly. The digital Leviathan is basically running out of fuel. If you can't pay the operators, the whole surveillance state collapses.
That's just wild.
But, I do want to push back on this vulnerability for a second.
Don't lay it on me.
Because we see political figures in the West, like Trump, for example, openly praising this exact model of unquestioned lifetime rule.
Right.
So if this system is so fragile, why does an American political figure admire this setup so much?
But honestly, strongman rule offers the powerful illusion of short-term efficiency.
Okay, I can see that.
Right. In that system, you don't have the messy pushback of a democracy. You don't have independent media scrutinizing budgets or Kurtz striking down orders. You just point and command.
If you want to build a high-speed rail line, it happens overnight.
Exactly. But it completely lacks an error correction mechanism. In a democracy, if you make a mistake, the press exposes it, or the voters remove you.
Built-in shock absorbers.
Exactly. But in the centralized model, when the lone decision maker is wrong, there's no one allowed to hit the brakes. The entire nation just drives off a cliff.
Yikes. So the car is speeding toward the cliff, the brakes are disabled, and the fuel tank is leaking. Let's run the sandbox simulation.
Let's do it.
If the system's internal contradictions cause the ultimate power vacuum tomorrow, the Leviathan vanishes, what actually happens to 1.4 billion people the day after?
Well, we're looking at 4 main sandbox scenarios. Scenario 1 is the historical cycle of chaos.
Ritual's deepest fear.
Completely. Without central funding, you get incredibly wealthy coastal provinces and much poorer inland provinces fighting for resources.
So basically modern warlordism.
Yeah. Paralyzed social services, financial ruin. It's the ultimate nightmare for a population with a cultural memory of civil war.
Okay, what's scenario 2?
Scenario 2 is geopolitical fragmentation, a breakup into regional confederations.
Oh, interesting.
Places like Xinjiang, Tibet, and Hong Kong would likely seek immediate autonomy, while wealthy areas like Shanghai and Guangdong might form independent economic city-states just to protect their wealth.
Which is super reminiscent of the late Qing dynasty, right? The mutual protection of Southeast China.
Spot on. Exactly that. Local governors just ignoring the center to protect their own money.
Wow. Okay, scenario 3.
Scenario 3 is the elite's democratic illusion.
I feel like a lot of optimists in the West hope for this one.
They do. The hope is that the 1989 Tiananmen ideals of freedom are reborn, but
It crashes into reality.
hard. You have a massive population lacking democratic infrastructure, no independent courts, no free press. So it risks devolving into extreme populism.
Right. Vicious class warfare. Urban elites wanting civil liberties while the rural populations demand immediate wealth redistribution.
Exactly. It would be incredibly chaotic.
Yeah.
Which brings us to scenario 4. And pragmatically, this is the most likely outcome.
Okay, tell me.
The Putin-style restoration.
Ah, of course.
Nationalism entirely replaces communism. Oligarchs divide up the state assets. And after a brief period of terrifying chaos, the exhausted public just willingly surrenders their new freedoms to a new authoritarian strongman.
Just to restore basic safety and order. Get the trains running again.
Yep.
You know, I think the best way to synthesize this is through the concept of institutional muscle memory.
Ooh, I like that phrase. Explain.
Well, just like a human body reacts instinctively to pain, right?
Yeah.
A society with 2 millennia of imperial history,
Oh, I see where you're going.
they associate central weakness with terrifying bloodshed, so their cultural muscle memory is triggered by instability. Rather than endure the incredibly messy, painful process of building a democracy from scratch, that muscle memory will make them instinctively reach out and grab the hand of a new strongman.
That makes perfect, terrifying sense. And because that threat of internal collapse is so phenomenally high, the current regime desperately needs a narrative to hold everything together.
An external glue.
Exactly. And what they rely on is nationalism. Specifically, the narrative of unifying Taiwan and stopping it from splitting.
The ultimate distraction tactic.
Yes, but if we apply historical and legal logic to this
What
narrative,
is this part?
it completely flips upside down. Historical timelines don't care about political narratives.
Walk me through it. Let's look at the law of continuity of sovereignty.
Okay, so let's look at the sequence of events. In 1912, the Republic of China, the ROC.
Okay, 1912, the ROC is established.
Right, and it legally inherited the full territory and sovereignty of the fallen Qing dynasty.
So 1912, the ROC exists holding the legal sovereignty.
Exactly. Now, who actually split from whom? Keep that in mind. Because in 1931, the Chinese Communist Party,
The CCP.
yes, they established something called the Chinese Soviet Republic in Jiangxi province.
Wow.
They issued their own currency, they set up their own laws, and essentially created an armed breakaway state completely within the legal territory of the ROC.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. When you lay the timeline out linearly, like that 1912 versus 1931, it completely destroys the narrative. Taiwan didn't break away because the ROC already existed.
Exactly.
Historically and legally, the CCP is actually the original breakaway regime. They forcefully seceded from the existing state.
Yes. And if you move forward to 1949, the ROC government simply relocated to the island of Taiwan. Its constitutional sovereignty has never been broken.
It just moved.
It just moved.
Yeah.
It's continued seamlessly to this day. Taiwan has not been ruled by the People's Republic of China for a single second.
That is wild.
The Taiwan splitting narrative is basically a reverse-engineered myth, designed to cover up the regime's own historical origins as an armed rebellion.
And to prop up their fragile legitimacy today when the economy slows down.
Exactly. History is never a straight line.
Wow. Okay. Today has honestly been a massive 7.0 earthquake for my brain.
Ah, right. It shifts your whole perspective.
Completely. We went from diagnosing the last emperor syndrome to simulating the collapse of a cash-burning AI state and then dismantling this grand myth of who actually split from whom.
It really shows that democracy and stability don't just magically sprout from the ashes of a fallen regime.
So true. And guys, this right here is the core value of Sip&Talk. We don't feed you fast food opinions. We don't take sides.
Nope, never.
And we absolutely do not criticize or discriminate against any nation or group of people. We just lay out the raw data and historical facts.
To foster independent critical thinking.
Exactly. We want you to be able to protect your own cognition and your assets in this incredibly complex world.
And, just a quick disclaimer, we are not investment experts, guys. Any economic trends or collapse scenarios we discuss today are purely for data reference and intellectual exploration.
For sure. Hey, if your brain is buzzing as much as ours right now, make sure to actively subscribe to the Sip&Talk podcast. We'd love to have you back.
Yes, please do.
Also, huge shout out to an old friend of ours. You guys have got to go subscribe to Mickey's YouTube channel. It's called Mickey to Life.
Oh, yes, Mickey to Life. Check out their latest travel vlogs. They're doing some incredible boots-on-the-ground exploration.
Honestly, such good stuff. Okay, I want to leave everyone with one final provocative thought to mull over.
Lay it on us.
We started this conversation talking about how a nation's future is heavily dictated by its historical muscle memory, right?
Yeah?
Well, it makes you wonder, what kind of invisible muscle memory is your own society building right now?
Ooh, that's heavy.
Right. Through the algorithms you interact with, the media you consume, the technology you rely on every single day. What instincts are we collectively programming into ourselves for the next crisis?
Definitely something to think about.
Exactly. Stay awake and stay sharp out there, Sip and Talkers.
Bye, guys. See ya.